Think you know everything about parcel shipping? Think again. This is ProShip Parcelcast, the only podcast hyper-focused on parcel shipping for supply chain and IT professionals in the retail, e-commerce, manufacturing, third-party logistics, and healthcare industries. Welcome to today's episode.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 33 of the ProShip Parcelcast. This episode is your guide to parcel rate shopping, types, tactics, and takeaways. So let me go ahead and introduce our first guest today, Jim. Jim, can you tell us a little about yourself?
I'm Jim Miles. I've been with ProShip 9.5 years, and I'm an integration engineering advisor.
Excellent. Jeff, you're next.
Jeff Sacamando. I am a manager in the integration department, and I've been with ProShip for 6 years.
And Cody.
I'm Cody Remmel. I've been chief architect for a couple of years, and I've been with ProShip for 13.
And I'm Justin Kramer. Many of you know me as the co-founder of ProShip, so I've been here since the beginning. All right, today we're talking all about the evolution of rate shopping. So Jim, let me start with you. Could you tell us a little bit about basic rate shopping? Really where we want to start if we're going to start our rate shop journey.
Yeah, with basic rate shopping, there's generally two options. You can rate shop just by cost and get the cheapest service available, or you could rate shop by commitment time and cost, which would give you the cheapest that would get there by the quickest commitment time. The downside of that is it's not taking into account weekends, carrier holidays, closeout times. It's just very basic commitment time rate shopping.
Excellent. And Jeff, I want to throw time and transit filter. I know Jim touched on it, but I'd like to throw that over to you. What is the primary difference between just a basic rate shop and a time and transit filter?
So, like Jim mentioned, your basic rate shops can be based off of price. So it's give me the service that's the cheapest. Whereas if you're using time and transit filter and you're going to say, I need to get this shipment there by 2 days or 3 days, tell me which service I can pick that's going to get it there now. Most of the time, that's going to give you your guaranteed services, your express services like next day, 2-day air. But when you're rate shopping, you can also take advantage of time and transits provided to you by the carriers for ground or postal last mile services if you have that information. And that would allow you to use that time and transit data and that time and transit filtering to potentially use a less expensive or cheaper service to get that package there in the same amount of time.
Awesome. Now, we all know that the time and transit filtering is really about what the carriers refer to as business days. And I think that's where our next conversation comes in, and that's advanced date shopping. Cody, would love to talk to you as somebody who's productized this, put it in place. Can you talk to us about the more advanced features that come with advanced date shopping and why we might want to use that, or when it would be valuable to use that versus basic rate shopping and time and transit filtering?
Sure. Yeah, as the name implies, you've got date shopping, which there's a bit to unpack there because you've got the basic data from the carrier for transit days with no additional information most of the time. If you can get extra information regarding the days that carrier is going to do pickups, the days it can do transit, the days it can do deliveries, you can start looking at forward and back for an ideal estimated date of your choice. So in the case of advanced date shopping, you're looking for an estimated delivery date based on all of this information. And for any given day, you should be able to establish that for any shipment that you've got the necessary data.
Excellent. So there's a counter to that, right? So we've seen how advanced date shopping can actually allow us to use a low-cost service in order to meet the realities of now. But what if I want to know when to ship a package? Let's say I'm doing subscriptions or something like that. Is there a process type, or is ProShip given it a name for process type, that if I say, hey, I need to get this to somebody on the 15th of next month, when should I ship it?
Yeah, so what you're referring to, we seem to have historically been referring to as reverse date shopping, whereas more often than not, we've been setting up customers for advanced date shopping in general, where they're looking, okay, I have an expected delivery date. I want to get it there by that time and compare shipments for just meeting that date. However, there are definitely times when maybe it's not ideal to ship everything immediately if you know that you need it. And in that case, you're looking for the last available pickup date, where if you can get it shipped between now and then, you can meet your customers' expectations. And so reverse date shopping is the name typically given to that. I've also been just here and there referring to it as last available pickup.
Good name. I like that. Last available pickup. So back to Jim and Jeff. I'm going to throw in a new one here because both advanced date shopping as well as reverse date shopping or last available pickup, they rely upon a lot of data that the customer can put in. Can you guys talk about some of the data that your customers, and Jim, I'll start with you, and then Jeff, if there's anything left out, please feel free to chime in here. But Jim, what kind of data do you see your customers entering when they're trying to control an advanced date shop?
Yeah, they're going to enter in carrier holidays or days that they're not going to be shipping. They're going to enter in carrier pickup times for the carriers so they know when to advance that ship date to the next day or the pickup date to the next day. They could potentially have to enter in time in transit manually. They could also enter in delivery dates when the carrier will deliver a package. Some carriers will deliver on Sundays and Saturdays, so they would have to enter that in.
That's awesome. Yeah, I do remember. I remember how UPS and FedEx tried to expand their delivery days, and now we've seen those collapse. And it sounds like we have the ability for our customers, based upon their contract, to retract that. Jeff, did you want to add any more to that?
As far as advanced date shopping goes, the other big piece of data that we need is a commitment date or a promise date that our customers have provided to their customers. Without that, advanced date shopping can't tell you what service to select. You need to
That is
know when does it need to get there by.
That is a great call out. We definitely need to know what that expectation is. As we go forward, though, there are other things that involve rate shopping that we're going to talk about. And we've got a process, sounds really close to advanced date shopping, but it's actually advanced rate shopping. And Jeff, there's a couple of different ways that when we look at how this can work in the enterprise software stack, how it can work in the advise versus advise and enforce. Can you talk through a couple of ways how if I'm a large retailer or if I'm a large manufacturer who ships B2C as well as B2B, how can something like advanced rate shopping help me execute or plan my execution better?
Advanced rate shopping can be used to take your shipment and assist your order management system or your inventory management systems and determine where that shipment should be sourced from. So you can provide the necessary information, your dimensions and weight and destination address, but then you can also provide multiple different origins. So you have distribution center in West Coast, Midwest, and then on the East Coast, but you're shipping to Texas. Which one should I source that from? More importantly, which one has, your inventory management system is going to say which one has the inventory. ProShip's going to tell you which one of those we should ship it from for the best cost to get it there when you want it there.
I could actually see how that would work really well because if you are going from one coast or the other, you may have a regional carrier that only sources from that side of the country, or you may be inside of a smaller regional carrier. I think there's other things we were talking earlier, and not all the carriers are the same, are they? Their accessorial rating.
No, they're not. Yeah, depending on what zone you're shipping to, depending on carrier, you may hit those extended delivery area surcharges or just delivery area surcharges. Whereas if you get those smaller regional carriers, that's not going to apply. And so you may be able to get some significant cost savings going through there.
Jim, I know you've been testing out the reverse date shopping of the last available pickup. Can you tell us a little bit more about what your customers might be looking for or how that is affecting them in a positive way?
It allows them to better manage when they have to pack and get a package ready to ship. If they don't have to ship a package for a week, they can focus on packing higher priority shipments first and or potentially just packing more on, say, a day where they have more staff and can handle more volume.
Yeah, labor continues to be a concern. And even with automation, there's still only so much you can push through a given inventory location at any point in time. And so that really does help to set or help us enforce a customer expectation. But sometimes customer expectation can be affected by the carrier themselves. So I know that we've got the ability to bias towards and away from carriers. Jeff, I'm coming back to you on this one. Can you talk to us about whether you call it cost differential biasing or margin of opportunity, something of that nature? I know this is something that's become really helpful as certain logistics managers prefer particular carrier A over carrier B when they're closely priced together.
Yeah, so what this is and how we would typically use it, or how I've used it, is you'll set a set price point or a variance between your winning service and the next available fastest service. So you're shipping your standard rate shop group, which is all your ground and maybe have a 2-day in there, a lot of postal last mile. And you'll put that differential out against the ground service and saying, okay, ground wins, but the next fastest service is within $3 or $5, whatever you want it to be. Use that faster service because one, it may push volume towards another carrier that you're looking for or that you want to push more volume to, or help you make your customer happier by you over delivering on your promise date to them.
Under promise, over deliver, and getting some carrier volume balancing in there at the same time. Sounds like it'd be a pretty useful tool, especially for that customer experience, as you mentioned. As we continue to talk about rate shopping, one of the things that in here is the rates themselves. Now, we have heard where customers they want to tweak rates or they want to say a non-committed service is of a certain time in transit. Jim, could you talk to us about why shippers may want to actually modify their time in transits or mark up or mark down rates before they go ahead and sort and filter those rates?
Yep. So some carriers don't publish and their APIs don't provide time in transit publicly. So if they have that data, if the client has that data, they can load it into a database and we can pull that data out and put it into the rate results. That will allow them to accurately get the time in transit for that service. Also, they may want to increase that around the holidays, or if they see that, let's say, a certain state, if there's an issue like a hurricane or something like that, they can add a time in transit to that to make sure that their packages are actually getting there when advanced date shopping says it's going to. Also, some carriers may want to add add a markup to the total of a shipping cost, and the post rating allows them to do that.
Yeah, I could definitely see how that time in transit would help because let's face it, the job of a good system like ours is to provide you with the realities the carriers present, but give you a means of altering them to the way you need them to calculate. So if you are, let's say, a 3PL and you're charging rates, yeah, you may need to mark up your rates differently depending upon the customer or depending upon the type of item that you're shipping. Let's go deeper into the warehouse and let's talk about when to produce a label. Jeff, I'm sticking with you here. In our experience, we've seen many different times where a customer can produce a label, whether it's something we might refer to as front of line or end of line. Could you talk about, as you go through this, if you were to do something front of line, like a large batch ship or a large wave ship, I think that some of the WMSs call it, are you limiting yourself versus if you were to actually apply those labels at the pack station or with a print and apply machine closer to that carrier trailer?
I wouldn't say necessarily limiting, but it does add some possible complications down the line. Whereas if you're rating up front based off of estimated weight as opposed to actual weight, when you get to that point where you actually pack your shipment, there may be a need to update that previously processed label or processed manifest for that carrier. But it's possible, and doing things front of line can give you an idea of what cost is going to be. It will be more accurate end of line because you will have those final weight and final DIMs and final package counts.
Mhm. And Jeff, would you do something like an advanced date shopping, let's say right now, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, first trailer is pulled. Would you still recommend doing an advanced date shopping via a wave or via a batch shipment?
That's gonna come down to business process though, isn't it?
Yeah, it would come down to business process here. When you actually apply that label from the time when it's actually produced is a concern when it comes to products like advanced date shopping. So it's one of those things we want to make sure that the customers understand. If you choose to execute front of line, there may be procedures that we can't execute based upon the unknown time associated from label production to when it's actually going to get on the remaining trailers in the warehouse. Because it does you no good to put a ground label on it, expecting a next day delivery if you don't actually get it in the trailer until tomorrow. All right, let's move on. Areas to rate shop where you may not be rate shopping. Mr. Isles, could you talk to us about if I have a single carrier, can I save anything doing rate shopping?
Yeah, I think it's a misconception that if you have a single carrier, you don't need to rate shop. I know that in my experience, I've had clients who, to certain areas, maybe a 2-day service was actually cheaper than a ground service, depending on how their rates were set up. You can still save money by rate shopping within a service within just a single carrier. Also, if you're not rate shopping, if you got to get a package there the next day, you may not know that UPS ground could get it there the next day, and you're going to save a lot of money shipping it ground versus next day.
Yeah, we've seen customers where one of their largest frustrations is somebody who's not in logistics feels that it's got to get there tomorrow. So what do? Next day, early
Next day
AM.
air.
And compare that to any ground rate, and it's going to be 4, 5, 6 times minimum. And if you start throwing in the early AM and first deliveries, it could be even more than that. You could be 10x the cost.
Yeah. I think you can also cut down the amount of errors by rate shopping. Certain services, 3-day saver, or some of the AM services aren't as widely available to certain destinations. And if you rate shop, that will eliminate those services. So you're also preventing the amount of errors, packages that error and then require manual intervention.
And of course, if we can keep manual intervention out of it, customers are going to have a better time. One of the questions that's for me today is multimodal rate shopping. And what we're talking about here is if you're routinely shipping heavy boxes, you could see where there'd be that opportunity to go, do I slap a pallet underneath these things and throw them LTL? Or should they go UPS multi-weight, FedEx 100-weight, or DHL break bulk, right? Compare these to an LTL shipment, and there is real savings that can be realized. So as part of that, you need to understand that it's something that can be done. Now, do you want to do this with a 10-pound package? No, that's a waste of processing time there. But as you start to get above 70 pounds, and especially as you start to get above 150 pounds, this is where some of those discounts start to come into play for the small parcel ground carriers, and where you're definitely going to want to look at what your capabilities are with your LTL carriers. So doing that 100-weight rate shopping can really help you determine whether or not you can save money on those in between shipments at that point in time. All right. So we've talked a lot about rate shopping, and most of what we've talked about has been in the direction of a warehouse, something with a dedicated logistics staff and people fully trained. I think where we want to go forward now is into ship from store. Jeff, I'm going to go to you here. One of the first things I've heard about shipping from store is you want to keep your carriers low. Why is that?
No, typically you shipping from store. The big thing is you're not having daily pickups. It's not like a warehouse where you got to schedule closeout truck showing up every day. You're shipping from store. You got to schedule those pickups, and those pickups may not be available every day. But also you have, your store employees are handling the shipping. They're packing the boxes, creating the labels, getting everything set up, and they not only have that to do, but they also have customers to take care of when they come in the store. They can't dedicate their time to processing shipments. Additionally, you have, a lot smaller space. You don't have a warehouse to stack up 1,000 boxes to put on a truck. You have space for 10 or 15 in the back of your store somewhere. When you're shipping from store, we generally try to limit, or at least suggest limiting that selection to 3 carriers or less. make sure that you're not taking up too much of your associates' time, and then also not taking up too much of your retail space.
Yeah, those are great points. And I will say that those store associates, they're not those logistics folks that we train up in the warehouses. They don't get to know all the capabilities of those carriers because they don't deal with them day in and day out. Tenure in a store isn't going to be anything like tenure in a warehouse, especially amongst the managers and others that they may go to for those questions. So it's definitely something where if you're looking to start ship from store, talk to your shipping experts, find out about what the recommendations are, because depending upon the type of store you have, are you a massive big box store where you actually truly have a true warehouse in the back? Or are you just taking up one little space inside of a mall and somehow you've got to get all that, the curbside pickup, the pickup in store, all of those things associated together, and at the same time be able to separate these go UPS, these go FedEx, these go same day carrier. There are ways to make that significantly easier. All right, let's go ahead and move into some of the features that we've talked about. Okay. So we want to make sure that as we understand customers who are listening, let's talk about what's in beta, what's available right now, what we can do about some of these things. So I'm going to go down a list real quick. So advanced date shopping, that's an active now component. Gentlemen,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
okay. Advanced rate shopping. Let's actually break that one down because there is a couple of different pieces for that. The basics of advanced rate shopping, is that something that's available now?
Yes. It's not productized at this time, though.
And when you say that, I think what you mean to say is that there is features and rules that we may need to add for every single customer in order to really bring all of that together.
Correct. Yeah. It's more of a custom solution.
Now, reverse date shopping or last available pickup. Is that something that somebody could call us up right now and use?
Yes. Pretty much as long as we have the data, any decision that can be made knowing the raw time in transit for a shipment and the dates that you want to deal with, yeah, we can get the answer. So it's actually very
Okay.
flexible. And if somebody finds an edge case, building that in is a very minimal effort and it would be a value add for us.
It was productized, but that productization is relatively new to us. So great. I'm sure there's lots we can do to help customers with that. Let's look at cost differential biasing. Where do we sit with that one?
We have some limited function for that at this point. It's looking exclusively at the cost ranking once an ADS advanced day shop has been ran. But again, this is something very easy to incrementally add in new features.
Excellent. Post rate modifications such as markup.
Yeah, those would be scripted or partially configurable through database configured rules. So
The nice thing about that is it means you're not limited in the creativity as to what you can do with that. And then finally, post rate modifications, time in transit replacement. So Cody, do we have a product piece for that yet?
It's on the roadmap.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be. I'm expecting it to be sometime this year. Yeah, working on it.
But Jim and Jeff, you guys have been doing this through business rules for a couple of years now, right?
Correct.
absolutely, yes.
All right. So basically, we just wanted to run down through all these things. So if any ProShip customers are listening, you understand you can call your CSS for all of them, actually. And some of these will be just a couple of switches. Some of these may be a little bit more engineering work. But all the things we talked about today, you can use in your solution. With that, let's go through and let's see if anybody's got any final thoughts. I'm just going to go around the clock as I see it here. So Jeff, I'm going to start with you. Any thoughts on the various forms of rate shopping that we talked about today or that we didn't quite get to that you want to make sure that our listeners might think about?
I think the big thing, what we talked about is, I know we brought up advanced rate shopping and advanced date shopping. While they are alliterative, they are still different, but they do work in tandem. So depending on what you're trying to accomplish, it would be to your advantage to look at both of them instead of just singling one out.
Yeah, and we may have a very full set of three-letter acronyms, as does any IT company. But yeah, they are very different, and many of them are something that can be stacked in order to get greater functionality. Cody, your thoughts for our listeners?
Only that the tool belt keeps getting bigger and we can entertain almost any conversation regarding a business process for shipping sites. Yeah, I hope people don't hold back their questions.
Yeah, and of course, with our CI/CD solution, anything that gets productized, it becomes a lot easier to deploy that. And once you've got a productized piece, if we find a way to make it more efficient, that automatic update process will pull it down for you, and you will gain more benefit from an existing feature. Mr. Isles.
Yes, I want to add that our newer ADS product that we've been talking about today is significantly better than our previous, and as far as speed and how easy it is to configure, and that you can't underestimate the importance of rate shopping.
Excellent. All right. So I'm just going to reiterate what some of you guys said in a slightly different form. And really what it comes down to is we've just talked for over 20 minutes about various forms of rate shopping, various forms of manipulating carrier data. This is something that over the last 23 years, ProShip has continued to accumulate information, data, and expertise on. If you need something, reach out. It is something that very few others in the industry can do. And we pride ourselves in being able to take the combination of our ability to do custom business rules along with refined product pieces, such as advanced date shopping, which I agree with Jim. The productized implementation of that is amazingly fast, like magic fast at this point in time. But we'd like to go ahead and continue to do that and continue to build on these successes that we've seen with over 20 years of company experience in the industry. So with that, we'll go ahead and end this one. If you've got any questions, we do recommend that you reach out to your CSS or reach out to ProShip if you're not a ProShip customer in order to take advantage of things like this. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of ProShip Parcelcast. If you'd like to learn more about ProShip multi-carrier shipping software, visit our website at proshipinc.com or connect with a ProShip parcel expert via email at sales@proshipinc.com or by calling 800-353-7774. Be sure to subscribe to Parcelcast on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss any of our future episodes. And until next month, happy shipping.